Hey folks, this is Dr. Mark Sue at the Functional Medicine Reality Podcast. I'm your host once again. This is a solo episode that is an intersection of several topics, but really it's all based on the matter of longevity medicine. And let me just start us off with this vignette or sort of life experience. A couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, he's actually the gentleman I've been taking lessons with for pickleball. And yes, I've become an unexpected major pickleball addict. All right. Played it a few years ago for the first time. Once or twice, I can't remember. Didn't really get a whole lot out of it, quite honestly. And I'm a tennis player historically, big time tennis player since very young an age. Pretty much my only sport throughout my life, quite frankly, until I sort of got into basketball latter half of my life. But a friend in town dragged me into pickleball in I think it was early April, and I don't know what happened, man. It was like somebody knocked me over the head, hit me with a magic wand or some kind of fairy dust or something, and it was just a different experience. I don't know why, but I became an addict and really fast, and I started taking lessons right away with this guy in town. And so he asks me this question one Saturday: "Hey, Mark, I know you're into longevity health, anti-aging. What should I do? What should I do? What should I take? What's the best thing that you'd suggest I take for longevity?" And man, frankly, I almost hate those kinds of questions. They're so hard, right? Because there's no one size fits all. And my analytical monkey brain kicks in, and I'm thinking, well, there really isn't like a data-based best answer, really. There's so much data, and you're comparing different types of data, and then ultimately, well, what are you really after? What do you define? How do you define longevity first and foremost? What are your goals? What are your sub goals or subconscious goals that you're not even aware of right now, right? That can only that often emerge with enough conversation around exploring the conversation based on your initial question, right? But faced with that sort of pointed, take it at face value question of what is the singular best thing I can take for longevity medicine, I reflected on it I took it as a challenge internally. He didn't mean it necessarily that way, but I took it as a challenge to myself to say, if I'm forced to answer that question, how am I going to answer that? And after the last couple of weeks of reflecting on it a bit, my current response as it stands right now, and I subject that I have the full right to change my opinion and conviction over time. But my response as it stands right now is the following. If you are looking to feel younger and feel better, if that's how you define longevity health, then the cheap and convenient best opportunity I'm going to point you toward is creatine. If you are looking to be a little more nuanced and personalized in order to, again, feel better and younger, then I'm going to think about hormone replacement therapy. All right. And so it's going to be based on testing and whether you even warrant it. And so that gentleman and I were in our 50s. All right. So let's just say we're talking to folks in this general age range. Let's say 45 to 65. All right. Having said that, the other category is here. If you are looking to actually not just feel younger and better, but if you're actually looking to be younger, okay, and healthier, which you may not feel, then if I'm picking one option right now, all comers, no testing or other details aside, I'm picking NAD, okay, True Niagen's NAD. But if you are looking to be more precise than just a blanket universal one size fits all, then I'm going to suggest you do biologic clock testing. And as we've talked about before, my testing of choice is True Diagnostics True Age Test. And I won't go into more details about that. I can feel my monkey brain wanting to get into that, but I'm going to shut that down. The goal with this test is to not just to know what your biologic age is, okay? Perhaps more importantly is to find what is your rate of aging, but especially importantly there is what is the weakest link among your 10 or 11, maybe it's 12 systems in your body with the biologic age score. Among those 12, what is the weakest link or two that warrants and it deserves your attention so that your system at large, your body at large can be younger and healthier, okay? Case in point, let's just hypothetically say if the person has a kidney condition that they don't know about and it looks normal on conventional testing, your BUN, creatinine, et cetera, maybe even microalbumin urine testing are normal, but there are newer markers now, even more cutting edge and more sensitive, more insightful about kidney health, and that is your weakest link to your health. I cannot tell you that taking NAD is going to help you with your kidneys. I cannot tell you that taking creatine or HRT is going to help you with your kidneys. All right. So ultimately, I know I said, hey, I'm trying to answer the question of what is the one single thing that's best for me for longevity health, and I just gave a 4-part answer. All right. I couldn't help myself. I don't know if I can give just one singular answer. I'm going to at least break it into segments. If you're looking for just an off-the-cuff response and you want to feel better, creatine. If you want to be younger, off-the-cuff, NAD. Going back to if you want to feel younger and be more nuanced and personalized, I'm going to consider HRT. If you want to be younger and you want to get personalized, we're going to do true age testing. Now, having said that, and there's room for all kinds of debate, and I'm happy to engage in that debate. Not just to debate, it's really to learn. Okay, quite frankly, I would love to learn. Longevity medicine is no doubt, it's an ongoing, evolving area, field, industry, etc. There's so much more to learn. There's so much we don't know about comparative, pros and cons between different therapeutics, all right? But I want to share this for the other portion of this podcast session here. This morning, for fun, I threw it into Claude. That is my AI app of choice, program of choice. And I'm just going to read to you here exactly what I threw in and the kind of response I got back. I won't read it all word for word. Question that I threw out. If a mid-50-year-old male patient asks me for a singular best supplement or intervention for longevity, so I did say supplement or intervention, doesn't have to be a supplement, what might be my top 3 considerations and why? All right. Tons of people are using AI, especially in the longevity medicine world. And so, hey, I just wanted to take this opportunity to sort of cross over, and simultaneously sort of like 2 birds with 1 stone, talk a little bit here about the use of and the evolving experiences with AI, all right, in the world of health. So, hey, here's the initial response from Claude. 3 things I'd weigh before answering that question for a patient in order of how much they should actually drive the answer. All right. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but the number one factor here was really meaningful because, I'm going to say it's biased because it just kind of reflects back to me, my thinking. Okay. So it made me feel validated, affirmed, and justified. The response from Claude: for a mid-50s male, essentially nothing sold as a supplement has randomized controlled trial data with mortality or major morbidity as the endpoint. Okay, in plain English, basically there isn't any meaningful evidence-based data that looks at death or major illness as the studied endpoint for supplements. Okay, we're walking on already, we don't have a lot of data on this. But the second sentence is the take home. What you have instead is a hierarchy. Okay, and it basically goes into 4 types of data. The first is what is listed here as robust epidemiologic cohort association. Okay, so this is like the best data you could have. The second is surrogate marker randomized controlled trial data. And it gives examples like with statins, the effects of statins on apolipoprotein B or cardiac events, or the effect of metformin on glycemic markers, glucose and such, insulin and etc., or the effect of omega-3 on triglycerides. Okay, so it's saying, hey, the cholesterol, blood sugar, etc., these are not metrics of death or disease, but we're using them as sort of surrogate markers as contributors to disease and death in the longevity world, certainly. All right. Third category is mechanistic/animal data. And then fourthly is practitioner consensus with weak or absent controlled data. All right. So I'm going to get some hate mail for this, if you will, but this is Claude speaking. All right. Let's go back. Let's just start from the end point there. The weakest body of rationale or justification, where it's just practitioner opinion. Okay. And there's weak or no data. It lists here in parentheses most peptides and many quote-unquote longevity stacks. All right. Now, let me just back up. Am I a fan of peptides? I am. Do I use peptides? I do. But I'm always cautious that, hey, the train has kind of gone way down the track there. And the sort of monetization of peptides has become a whole different animal. All right. So I'm a fan of peptides, but I think for me personally, the sort of presented or insinuated promise and benefits of peptides has effectively become more of a business. And I'm kind of concerned about the eventual kickback effect that all will have on the functional medicine world. Nonetheless, let me keep going. Going back from the 4th to the 3rd category of data here, mechanistic and animal data. So here we're talking about rapamycin, zombie cell supplements, senolytics, as for those of you who know senolytics, NAD, etc. So again, am I a fan of rapamycin, NAD, I am. Do I use them? I do, but I'm just cautious about how I present them to people, right? And then if we go all the way back to, we'll skip the in between the surrogate markers. When we go all the way back to the robust data that is available in parentheses, what are examples of that? VO2 max, muscle mass, and some HDL related metrics. All right. But I want to focus on that VO2 max and muscle mass because we've done a podcast session in the past with my buddy Cooper Paul on VO2 max and zone 2 training and such, talking about VO2 max testing, et cetera. But look, further down in this Claude response, let's just jump all the way to the bottom, okay? The bottom paragraph. Where does this leave the actual answer? If the patient means, quote unquote, single best intervention, meaning not just supplements, then structured exercise targeting VO2 max improvement, parentheses, zone 2 base plus interval work, is the most defensible singular answer you can give with a straight face and real data behind it. Hey, we've heard this before, right? A lot of folks in the longevity world, the key opinion leaders, the experts, there's a lot of talk about VO2 max, but we are in instant gratification America where putting in the work and the time to increase your VO2 max by exercise, hey, there's definitely people who are into that, but there's a lot of people who aren't, right? And it's a lot easier to take pills than to increase your VO2 max through exercise. I will add also as an in-between, not to be an enabler on that I'm a big fan of IV ozone. There is at least some information in studies about increased VO2 max in kind of like a eye-popping way, actually, in one kind of comparative trial among rugby players. Everyone trained the same. Those who are doing IV ozone, simple one-pass IV ozone, granted they did a number of sessions, they had meaningfully greater. I think it was at least 18%. I don't think it was 30%, but it was in that range. 18 to, let's say, low 20% further improved VO2 max doing their rugby training with VO2 with IV ozone versus their teammates who are only doing the same training. Right? Astounding numbers, actually. Furthermore, Claude goes on, if they specifically mean supplement only, as in something orally taken that's excluding exercise and behavior changes, then honestly, you're choosing among things with much weaker evidence and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I just point this out as a case example that the same applies to both chronic inflammation and chronic disease, whether it's long COVID, Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, chronic headaches, chronic fatigue, and the like. And it applies the same with longevity medicine. All right, this is the nature of functional medicine. We just don't have the data we'd like to have. But so long as we make mindful and thoughtful, methodical, as much as we can, as much rationale-based decision-making as we can, acknowledging when we don't have that information, and we don't over-portray that information to each other as colleagues, or much less especially to patients, and create false expectations. It is what it is. Patients do not, it pains me to see people suffering when there are at least things we can try, weighing the risk and benefit ratio, right? Especially what are the risks? Time, money, effort, and especially side effects, potential harm, et cetera. Do no harm first. When that is spelled out clearly and expectations are aligned, good things can happen. Patients got to know the ramifications of the decisions that are being made. Hopefully those decisions are collaborative. Hopefully they're made with the patient's best interests at heart and not in a revenue generating business biased way. All right, which is unfortunately a lot of what's in functional medicine. We don't see that as much from practitioners in conventional medicine because the system is limited in that regard. As for the opportunities, if you will, certainly, yes, we can all talk about the conventional medicine system as a whole and some of the corruption and all kinds of pieces there, obviously on a system level. But just for the individual practitioner or practice, I will argue, and it's not a knock, I'm not judging, criticizing, there's more potential for that in the functional medicine world. And that is something that you've heard. If you've listened to past podcast sessions, you've heard Mike and I, especially Mike, the IEP, the doctor of homes, and I, the doctor of people. We've talked about this a lot because we see it in that mold illness world regularly with inspectors and remediators overcharging and portraying to clients that they need to do arguably more than they really need to do, right? To be healthier, leveraging fear, leveraging anxiety, gaslighting people, fear-mongering, okay? And in this case, maybe not fear-mongering in the longevity world, more exaggerating claims, all right? Inferring and insinuating that there's more confidence and rationale behind decision making that really may be very weak or absent completely. All that being said, summary points here. For me, longevity medicine, really fascinating for me. A lot of tools that we can apply to even chronic illness patients. Love the evolution, and I'm very stimulated to have ongoing conversations. That's where I'm landing right now with what is the best supplement for me? And again, excluding exercise and behavior, but what's the best supplement for me, as I stated before. All right. Having said that, qualifier. So point number 2, qualifier. The best database answer we can state and respond with in terms of improving longevity is increasing our VO2 max. All right. That's been said many times. It is, hey, for whatever it's worth, it's Claude's answer from AI and scouring all the data out there, et cetera, in cyberspace. So if you're listening to this and you've been looking for more motivation and fodder to get into action with exercise, VO2 max is the way to go. All right. And whether it's, you might meaningfully benefit from having official and accurate VO2 max testing, getting a sense of where you're at, using that as a metric, using other gauges along the way that are less expensive, less time costly, et cetera, time expenditures, et cetera, and then retesting yourself from time to time. But VO2 max improvement is something that does require a little bit of some strategic targeted training. So it's not something that we can just decide we're gonna walk more or run more, and that'll definitely happen. It can happen, but talk to your practitioner or trainer or somebody who understands this to be more efficient and effective in accomplishing your goal. All right. And certainly, lastly, point number 3 is when it comes to functional medicine, as illustrated by this Claude response in the context of longevity medicine and best supplements for longevity, there are tiers of and sort of gradations of rationale and data. And that's the nature of functional medicine. We're not going to have enough data, but we need to be fair and just with each other. And certainly, as for us as practitioners, we need to be fair and just with our patients. We need to show up with integrity and not oversell or overpromise, and collectively over time give the functional medicine community and field and discipline a bad rep, all right, by overstating and overpromising. All it takes is clear communications and transparency and integrity. That is my call to action. That is my want and wish. I hope this has been meaningful and of value to folks, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're a patient. I invite feedback, thoughts, would love to learn from anyone and everyone. Thanks for listening in. We'll check you next time. Again, as always, if you are looking for a functional medicine practitioner to work with, whether it's the first time or as a second opinion, or you're in between practitioners, you're stuck, you've been doing a lot of DIY work, do-it-yourself work, and you need some support, RootSeekHealth.com is where you can find us, myself and our team. It would be our honor and privilege to work with you, to be part of your healthcare journey, and we would love to have the opportunity even just to do a meet and greet. And so RootSeekHealth.com is how you can find us. We'll look forward to working with you and or your family or friends, loved ones, etc. And we'll check you on the next session. Thanks for tuning in.